I love Robert Eggers' work.
Come to me.
But I think Nosferatu is his best film yet. When you think about being cold and that feeling of extended death, that dread that you get when winter comes around, this is what Nosferatu is for 2+ hours. It is just not sure what's going to happen, feeling that dread, feeling that horror.
But I think really the main star of this movie is Lily-Rose Depp.
But I've never been so happy.
Does things with her body, who does things with her performance that are so chilling and are so shocking that at some points I'm like, some of this has to be CG. Like, there's no way that her face can do this. There's no way that her mind will even go to a place like this.
Overall, the experience of Nosferatu is something that you haven't seen in the theaters. The visionary look of it, the hauntingness of it. Lily-Rose Depp is immaculate. Skarsgård is pure evil. This is going to be one of those horror classics that a lot of people will look to.
Nosferatu.
Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of Nosferatu. My name is Daniel. I am one of your hosts today, and joining alongside me in the crypt, it's Shahbaz.
Hello, Daniel. How are you doing today?
It's good. That's really good. I should have called you Count Shahbaz. Count Shahbaz.
One Dracula.
No, not
Dracula.
that count.
Oh, not that count? Sorry.
Not
Could
that
we get
count,
sued for
no.
doing that? Is that like a breach of copyright?
No, I think we're okay. We're in the
Okay.
we're so far we're good. We're
We're in the clear.
Thumbs up from everybody.
What?
We're okay.
I don't
What?
think
We're
Dracula has like a PR team that's like, ooh,
No,
they're making
I was
fun of
doing
me.
the count
Hold
from
on.
Sesame Street.
Not Dracula. This is not
Sorry,
Dracula. guys.
Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Bram Stoker is a writer on here, though, so technically...
I mean, I think they had to. I mean, because like Nosferatu was like originally like an unauthorized version of Dracula. Now I feel like, yeah, we gotta give a little credit because it's a lot of the
It's the same character.
stuff.
Yeah.
It's the same. Count Anthony, how you doing?
I'm here to suck your blood.
I don't know which one I liked the least, but
I think
you know,
my audience is jealous
my
right now
Nosferatu
below.
was like least enthusiastic about sucking anyone's blood. So he's like,
He's
Yeah,
like,
he's
I
not
guess
committed.
I'll do
He's
it if
not
I have
committed.
to. You know,
rather
like, yeah, he's
kill
just-
me than
You're not Ratu's... He's
Like,
not from
steak
Transylvania.
me.
He's from like Pennsylvania. Like he's not... He doesn't
Yeah,
care.
yeah. He's just like, guys, I'm gonna go out in the sun.
listen.
Listen, I like the sun too much.
Yeah.
It's good.
I'm not a
It's
fan
all
of this
good.
job.
Yeah. I love that we're talking about Nosferatu in 2024. You know, this is a over 100-year-old adaptation that we're now getting, you know, from Robert Eggers, who, you know, for a lot of people, you'll know Nosferatu from, you know, being an unauthorized version of Dracula to appearing in an episode of SpongeBob SquarePants for some reason and scaring the hell out of a lot of kids, including me growing up. That was where I first learned who Nosferatu was. I'm like, oh, he seems like he's an okay guy. And now here we are. Robert Eggers is back, and this is the second film of his that we are reviewing. If you wind the clocks back, all the way back to The Northman in 2022, we spoke all about, you know, that film obviously in our review, and 2 years later, this guy is just making movies. I love that. I love when we have a director whose vision is so clear, and he's like, listen, I'm going to consistently make movies, and I'm not going to have like a 10-year break between my movies like, you know, Tarantino and James Cameron. But otherwise, here we are talking about Nosferatu today. I want to say a huge thank you to our friends at Focus Features for inviting us to watch this film. And we're going to talk all about it because this is the movie podcast. You can catch brand new episodes all throughout the week with new interviews and reviews and all the latest movies and series. If you like what we're doing, give us 5 stars, leave a comment on YouTube. A like goes a long way. And if we make it into your Spotify Wrapped, let us know. We'd love to see that. Tag us on socials. We will always share it. And we'd just be so honored if we did make your Wrapped. So let us know. Apple Podcasts does not do a Wrapped for podcasts yet. Maybe one day, but yeah, definitely Spotify. Tag us. We'd be so grateful to see that. Everything you need to know is in the show notes below. We have a lot of fun stuff coming, so you don't want to miss it. We're going hard the last few weeks of the year, so we're just, we want to bring you as much movie goodness as we can. I'd love to know before we get started, for both of you, Dracula, Nosferatu, what's your experience in the world of vampires? Because I feel like we had a hot minute in the late 2000s, 2010s, where like, oh, Twilight, vampires are coming back into play. But now we're getting back to what the vampires really were in, the mythology. So what's your background with vampires? Anthony, start us off.
Well, it starts off with a vampire in Brooklyn, and then it goes on to... I'm waiting for you guys to laugh because it's a joke, but...
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Vampire in Brooklyn. You guys don't remember that? With
yeah, of course.
Vampire
Eddie Murphy.
Brooklyn, man.
Eddie Murphy. Yeah.
Directed by...
It's a great film, though. Wes Craven.
Anyone? There we go. Wes Craven.
Yeah,
Iconic movie.
Anything that's vampire related, I pretty much watch. So, Interview with the Vampire, Bram Stoker's
Little
Dracula,
Vampire, Daniel, right?
Little Vampires.
Blade. Like there's so many. So I'm always like interested in that world. But yeah, I enjoy the vampire genre.
Yeah. Do you want to live forever, Anthony, though? Would you want to live forever?
No.
It's like,
why?
I don't even want to live right now.
I don't even want to live right now, guys.
Damn.
Stake me through the heart.
No. Shahbaz, how about you? What's your history with vampires?
I'm not really a big fan of blood. I'd like it to be in me most of the time. I don't like to be outside or, getting sucked on by a vampire at all. So I don't like vampires, but I like vampires. I don't know how else to describe that. Like, I don't like them because they're awful and I don't like what they do, but their movies and their mythology is always so interesting. And I love that there's this, I love that every religion almost kind of has something vampire related. And we've gotten some great vampire movies in the last, I don't know, like 5-10 years now. I feel like we're going to be on this vampire renaissance. We had Abigail this year, which I loved. I thought that was such a good movie, such a great vampire film. And now we're here at Nosferatu, which continues that. So I feel like we're going to be on a bit of a vampire trend going forward, kind of like what I think Twilight had started at when it came out. But for me, yeah, I've watched, I think, almost everything vampire related. I haven't watched the original Nosferatu, but I mean this year
the Max Shrek one.
Yeah,
like the one from 1922.
No, I didn't have the Blu-ray of that, so I couldn't watch it.
No, and there's also like the Werner Herzog one as well too from the 70s.
I mean, and this year we also had Salem's Lot, which I guess is also kind of like Nosferatu and Dracula. So a lot of good vampire stuff, and I think I've watched it all. Like, yeah,
Lost Boys,
yeah, and then
Lost Boys,
yeah,
Kiefer Sutherland, man,
Lost Boys. What We Do in the Shadows.
What's funny? I was watching the show 2 nights ago because I was like, oh, I got to catch up, and I've been hearing that this season or the show's getting really good. So I'm on season 2 right now, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's hilarious, and it's funny to see how the concept of a vampire could be adapted into so many different genres of films or in shows. So we see like Abigail really was that crossover. It's a comedy, but it's a horror comedy. So like it really kind of blends the two worlds of that. And yeah, and here we are with Nosferatu, Robert Eggers coming in and giving us really a classic adaptation of a monster movie of this creature coming to town and, taking over and bringing the plague and doing all this stuff. You have a stacked cast in this film, including Bill Skarsgård as Nosferatu. We have Lily-Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Emma Corrin, Ralph Ineson and his incredible voice, Simon McBurney, and of course, what is a Robert Eggers movie without Willem Dafoe, who again just comes in and steals the whole damn thing. Let's get to our first reaction. Shahbaz, I would love for you to start us off.
Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, it will unleash an unholy nightmare on the entire audience. The entire time, you're going to be feeling like you're sinking into the darkness of this movie. It's sinister. It is bloodthirsty. The performances by every single person in this movie will actually chill you to your bones, and you'll never predict what's about to happen because this movie keeps you in this unfamiliar, unsettling kind of aura. I genuinely felt like I had been transported back to 1887 or whenever this movie was taking place because I was there, man. I felt like I had been locked into Germany, to Transylvania. And the whole time, I remember I kept looking at both of you guys and I'm like, I would have hated to live in this time where you get a common cold and you're pretty much dead. Like there was
it's the plague. You're dead.
You're dead. Like you stub your toe, amputated right away. Like there's no saving you. I think one of the highlights in this film, you look at Bill Skarsgård and I think he's such a phenomenal actor, and he hasn't gotten his flowers yet. I truly believe that. I think he's always covered in makeup, or always just, in a way, kind of like Andy Serkis. People know that he does a great job of performance capture. But when you have someone like Bill Skarsgård who literally transforms, like, I don't see him as Count Orlok. I just see Count Orlok, and I believe that is him in that vision right there. But I think really the main star of this movie is Lily-Rose Depp, who does things with her body, who does things with her performance that are so chilling and are so shocking that at some points I'm like, some of this has to be CG. Like, there's no way that her face can do this. There's no way that her mind will even go to a place like this. It's unnerving. She's so damn good in this movie, and she's the bright star, and she's leading us through the entire film. The entire movie is absolutely terrifying. Like I said, you feel unsettled, but there's still this weirdness of this movie coming out on Christmas Day, and it absolutely makes sense. It totally makes sense. I get why it's coming out on Christmas Day. It's a good way to feel scared, but also cozy, because this movie kind of has this warmth to it, this dark warmth, which is usually not the case. You think about darkness, think about cold. That's usually what happens. But there's a warmth to this movie that kind of holds you tight, and you feel like you're suffocating throughout this entire experience. My only main issue with this movie, I'd say, is that it is a tad bit long. At about 2 hours and 13 minutes, I think you can shave about 15 to 20 minutes off of it. There's a lot in the beginning that, is great at establishing things, but you could maybe quicken that pace up, because by the second and third act, it really hits the ground running, and you're just like, okay, I'm locked in. I'm ready to for whatever happens next.
I love Robert Eggers' work, and when you look at his filmography, and he doesn't have a lot of films, which is crazy to think. This is his fourth movie, and The Lighthouse is my favorite work of his, but I think Nosferatu is his best film yet. And when you think about watching a movie like this around the Christmas season, obviously Christmas is something that is happening in the background of this movie. When you think about being cold and that feeling of extended death, that dread that you get when winter comes around, this is what Nosferatu is for 2+ hours. It is just constantly just like not sure what's going to happen, feeling that dread, feeling that horror, but being so immersed, like Shay said, like you are transported back to the 1800s watching this. You are in another time period. And that's what Robert Eggers does so well with his work, better than so many who are doing it right now, where you just feel like everyone there, no one has iPad face. Everyone in this movie feels like they're out of that time, living this experience. And again, Lily-Rose Depp is such a star, and we're going to talk all about it. But Anthony, please jump on in. Let us know your thoughts on Nosferatu.
There's so much respect for Robert Eggers and what he created for this movie. It's shocking, because it's like you see his progress, and he has such a unique look to his films that we watch a lot of movies. So a lot of these movies that you see in theaters, they kind of start to look similar to one another. But this film and all his previous films, they just have a unique look. Like they're just like, there's nothing that ever comes close to his style of filmmaking. The way he uses the camera in this film, it just moves. It's fluid. There's a sequence with Lily-Rose where she's like lying, and the camera's facing her, and she gets up, and the camera kind of like revolves around her, and then it comes right behind her. And it's just like, those are things that you don't see utilized as much. Maybe it's utilized in a CG format, but this felt so practical, and it felt so purposeful. Overall, the experience of Nosferatu is something that you haven't seen in the theaters. It's classic, but it's also dreadful, and it has this lurking feeling of this Orlok vampire who just wants his bride. And throughout this 2.5 hour film, you feel it. You feel like he wants, at the end of this movie, he wants Lily-Rose, and you go through this journey with all these characters and the anguish that they experience and the suffering that they experience. And taking place in the 1800s, it is an interesting time period. Like, again, we've said it, we don't ever want to live in that time period. This movie works in that time period. Like, if you were to shoot it now, it just doesn't feel right. You need the survivalness of that time period to even make it more of a risk for these characters.
You need those limitations, right? Of traveling is an issue, getting somewhere in time is an issue. You know, like a cough is an issue. Like there's a lot where you're just like everything. You know, you're working against elements more than you would be if, let's say, if this was taking place in today, which I don't think we'd see a film. Like, you know, he hasn't done a modern day film yet, so it's interesting, right?
Like Bill. Like I learned that he changed his octave in his voice to get Orlok's voice. Like that is like when you hear him, you don't ever think, well, this sounds comical or cartoonish. It feels like this is a real person. This is how he talks, and he has such a what's the word? He has such a strict tone,
gravitas.
Yeah, within the words that come out of his mouth, you have to listen.
It's hypnotic, right? When he talks, like you're just like, it's like it literally is like he's putting a trance on the audience when he's talking.
Definitely,
the breath, the sound design of his breath. I'm like, is the theater shaking every time he breathes? Like, is he beside? Like, it's incredible how this movie sounds as well.
Yeah, the sound design is like creaking, the doors opening, the running, the footsteps, because everything's wood, everything, like it just has that period piece that, you know, that sound just works well with. But overall, I enjoyed it. It's a long burn, but it is such a film that you appreciate because you haven't seen it before, you haven't experienced it, or maybe it's been a while since you experienced it on the big screen. So you appreciate it with all the detail, the craftsmanship, and just all the historical accuracies that this movie portrays, other than not real vampires. But it feels like this is a real event that happened.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that because, yeah, it does feel like this is something that, you know, people in the 1800s, you know, we had to deal with this. This is something they had to deal with, and now, you know, vampires are extinct now, like, you know, like the dodo bird and the dinosaurs. But it's just, yeah, I mean, Robert Eggers, he's such a fascinating director to me because in a lot of ways he has his distinct style. I think when you see his, you know, the 4 films that he's released, you know, visually there is a look there. You know, a Robert Eggers film, I think, from the last 4 films that we've seen of him. And very much in the way that, like, you almost know a Wes Anderson film when you're looking at it. And not that they had the similar style at all, but I think they're both so, you know, direct in their stylistic choices that they are clear and present in their works. And I think every demonic detail of Nosferatu, you see it on screen. And there's an almost like a low tech feeling to this movie because even the way the special effects are done feels more haunting because they feel almost like they were done practically in camera or they're using old school movie magic to do stuff. I know they were saying all the rats in this movie were real. Like, there's a lot of rats in this movie, and for them not to be CG, that's terrifying. Like, that is absolutely an insane feat that they were able to pull that off. And I think everyone in the casts knew what they were doing with this. They knew they had something special because everyone is delivering. Obviously, we spoke about Lily-Rose Depp, who does things in this movie that I didn't know was possible for a human. And again, like Shay said, whether this was practically done or if this was assisted afterwards or touched up in the edit and post-production, it is so scary. And I think the big flowers on this film were its editing in terms of how we're connecting this story together. Obviously, the visuals, and I really hope that this film gets its flowers for cinematography because, you know, you look at the Lighthouse, which got nominated for best cinematography at the Oscars. I hope Nosferatu is the same because they truly are just beautiful films. And the same cinematographer, it's Jaron Blackshick, who's the cinematographer. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing that last name, but absolutely just stunning film to look at. It is like nothing you will see in the theater this year. And I think in 2024, we've had some incredible horror films.
We really have. And I think what another through line with horror this year is the score. The score for every movie that we've gotten so far, horror related, has been phenomenal. You aren't getting the same thing. You're getting a new flavor every time. And what's interesting here is that Robert has, you know, decided to team up with his previous composer from the Northman, Robin Carolan, who, you know, this is the second film that he's composing here. And what a amazing score. I just remember hearing it every time Count Orlok would appear, or every time we're just kind of glazing over the village. There's this ominous tone that really fits, and it's a period of its time as well. And yeah, I was shook every time music came on screen.
Yeah. I also like that, it's really like great to have just like a classic movie villain who's just like, this is an evil spirit, this is an evil entity, this is a bad person or creature that we are going to have to try and overcome this. There's not really a backstory given to Nosferatu. There's no other this was what he was in a past life, or this and this and this. Is like, no, like, this is the creature, this is what we're going up against. And I think Bill Skarsgård does such a incredible job. Like, you do not see this guy. Like, I think, and that's what, when you think about like just unselfish performances, he is somebody that his presence is felt throughout this film. Every scene, even when he's not on screen, you're thinking about, where is he? What is he doing? It's daytime, so we're a little more safe right now, but you're feeling that presence. And I think to be under so much makeup, to completely change your body and the octave that you speak in, like, that's to risk permanent damage to do that. Like, it is all on the screen in this. And I think this is one of the best directed films of the year, hands down. And just to look at this thing it's incredible. It's one of those movies that I'm like, I cannot wait to see how this looks on an OLED screen at my house, because it's just such a gorgeous looking movie.
The way it's shot, it almost looks like it's black and white, but it's also color. So it has like this monochromatic but color blend to it, and especially night shots, which look fantastic. I don't know what they used. I know they filmed it on film, but I don't know what they used to create like the just deep blacks in this movie, because Orlok, he lives in the shadows, and most of the time he's hiding in the shadows, and there's the flame behind him if there's a fire, or maybe the moonlight. And it's just beautiful to see how they mask his identity for a large part of this film. And you're trying to understand, like, what does he look like? Because you think of Nosferatu, if you've ever come across a picture of Nosferatu, like with the big nose and the pointy ears and the long fingers. This one's a little bit different, and he's more sinister looking, and he's more like haggard, and he has more character to him. He's not just this monster that I think a lot of people know of the character. And another thing of this film is there's not a lot of blood, so it's not gratuitous gore or anything like that, and that's what makes this even more scary, because it's not like you are going into a film where there's going to be jump scares, which there was in the beginning and I didn't expect it. But it's not a jump scary movie. It's not a movie where we're going to show a lot of blood to showcase how evil this dude is. It is really the lurking and possession that scares you in this film, like just the overall, like that shiverness, when you get the shivers, this guy, Orlok, is the guy behind you giving you the shivers. That's what you feel when you watch this movie. And that's scary in a different form, in a different format.
Yeah, it's the blood you don't see, right? Because there's so much that happens in this film that's like in the shadows. And it's not like you're like, oh, I can't see what that is. It's like, no, like, what's happening. And it really relies on your imagination to fill in the gaps of what you're not seeing. It really is scary. And again, shout out to movies that have such incredible lighting, because there are so many movies, so many modern films now that you see, and it doesn't matter whether they're shot on film or digitally, there's just not pretty to look at. And there's a lot of big movies out now and other films that are, that are released over the years that you're just like, man, like, this lighting is not great, and it's very distracting, and it takes away from the film that you're watching because everything looks flat. Anthony, you call out the night shots in this film. For a movie that takes so much, that takes place so much at night, you really just get lost in how gorgeous it looks, and just like how every detail, you still see that. And it's not like they're shooting for day and making a night afterwards. Like, there's a magic, there's an old school feeling to Nosferatu that I think Robert Eggers has brought to all of his films. And I'm really excited. It makes me so happy to have a director like him working today to, really bring that classic filmmaking to life. Like Shay said earlier in his first reaction, I do think this is a little long of a film. There's definitely moments where I feel like, okay, I think we could tighten it up. We could get to a little bit faster. But again, you're living in this world, you're transported by this world. So really, when I'm like, oh, it's just, where are we in this film right now? I'm like, oh, we were 90 minutes in. So I felt like it kind of was going by fast, but also once kind of the little middle proportion for me, I started to feel like, okay, let's kind of see where this is going to go. But again, when you're immersed with the visuals and the performances and the music, you really are you're just taking it all in because it is just gorgeous. But let's get to our final recommendations for Nosferatu. Shahbaz, I'm going to get you to start us off.
This is a watch it. I think if you are down for something scary this holiday season, then Nosferatu is that movie. If you've loved Robert Eggers' work from this previous line of films, then you're going to continue to love this because this is really a culmination of all the previous work that he's done. But I think this is kind of like his magnum opus. I think this is one that he's worked the hardest on, a passion project per se. And I'm really excited to see what he does next because if Nosferatu is any indication of where he can get even better, I'm on board. Yeah, it's a fantastic film, and I think you should definitely watch it.
I love it. I'm right there with you. This is a watch it for me. This is Robert Eggers' best work yet, and I think it's a masterwork of horror. In a year with so many incredible horror films, I think Nosferatu might be, it may take the crown for me once it's all said and done. It really is a gorgeous film. You have some incredible performances in it, and it just feels like a classic movie, the type of movie that we don't get anymore. It really is special. He's in a league of his own when it comes to making movies like this, and I cannot wait to see what he does next. Anthony, take us on home.
Yeah, I agree. This is his passion project. Like, I think this is what he's been leading towards, and you could see it, like the visionary look of it, the hauntingness of it. Lily-Rose Depp is immaculate. Skarsgård is like pure evil, and really this is going to be one of those horror classics that a lot of people look to. It's funny that we're ending the year with this movie. Like the horror of Hollywood is ending 2024, and I can't see it ending in any other way because it is a must-watch film of the year.
I love it. Of course, this is the Movie Podcast. If you like what we're doing, check out our show notes below for all the links you need to know and more. If you want to see Nosferatu in theaters and succumb to the darkness yourself, December 25th, Christmas Day, is the day of the vampire. Go check it out and let us know what you think. We have a Discord channel to talk all about it once the film opens up. We're so happy to be doing what we're doing here. We have lots of fun still to come here on the Movie Podcast before the end of the year. But until next time, that was This Time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.